music plays, we invite you just to relax, close your eyes, rest in the presence, and hold space.
Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Ganapataye Namo Namaha. Jai Ganesha Gananatha Dayaniti Sakala Vignakara Dura Hamari. 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 Namo Namaha.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Welcome to our weekly online satsang. Satsang means community of truth, but basically it means spiritual community. Wherever you have 2 or 3 or more people who are on the spiritual path of awakening and transformation, you have a satsang. So, welcome to the Flowering Heart Satsang. We attract people from many different countries and continents, from different spiritual traditions and belief systems. What unites us? Well, everything is one, of course. But beyond that, what brings us together in satsang is that we're all experiencing the process of awakening and the flowering of our hearts in divine union with unconditional love. And so you're welcome, regardless of where you're coming from or where you happen to be now. It's so important on the journey that as we awaken, we connect with others who are also awakening. It strengthens us. Our awakening strengthens them. When we bring our energies and our presence together, it's multiplied. And it's just a very important ingredient. We share throughout these webcasts something we call the Flowering Heart Blessing. Which is something that the Divine shared with Suzanne and me a little over 7 years ago. We had been involved in many different forms of Diksha and transmission of spiritual energy. And the Divine said, okay, share this with the people now. And it was the same Divine presence, but the way we experienced that Flowering Heart Diksha was like light just pouring into our hearts, causing our spiritual hearts to just supernova, the divine presence within just beginning to just explode and shine out through all the layers of our being from the inside out, spirit, soul, body, relationships, connections to the world. And immediately we realized that that's the one we were looking for. Because we saw so many people over the years when they would receive Shaktipat or Diksha or some spiritual empowerment become very attached to the outward vessel through whom it came. I must be with that guru, I must be with that master because they can give me awakening. When the one you're looking for and what you're looking for is already there inside of you, at the center of your spiritual heart. That is your divine self. Your true essential nature is already quite enlightened and quite one with the divine. So what we need to do is not find some enlightenment that we don't have or find the connection to some divine that isn't already there for us. We need to go deep, deep, deep inside and connect with the light at the center of our being. The Flowering Heart Blessing activates that connection for people and causes it just to begin to expand and unfold. The Divine said, tell people this one does not come through any particular master or avatar or guru or spiritual tradition or hierarchy or organization. It comes from me. And I give it to whomsoever I will as a gift of grace, so don't charge for it. Grace means it's given freely out of love. It's not earned, it's not paid for, it's not deserved. It's simply received with humility. And the Divine said, so tell people it comes from me, tell people it's free, and tell people if they want to share it with others, this wonderful grace that catalyzes awakening and the flowering of the heart, then let them know that as soon as they've received the Flowering Heart Blessing, they have immediately been initiated and activated to share it with others. And all you need to do really is invite the Divine to pour the Flowering Heart Blessing through you. If it's with someone in your physical presence, it needs to be by informed consent. They need to understand this is gonna change them. And gently lay your hands on top of their heads. You don't need to put your hands anywhere else on them for this blessing. It's the Divine doing it, not you, not me. And we just invite the Divine to pour through us the Flowering Heart Blessing and then get out of the way. We don't need to visualize anything, beg for anything, pray for anything, affirm anything. Just invite the divine to do it, and the divine is the one that knows how to do it, knows exactly what that person needs and how to get it across to them. So, if you need to know more about it, go to our website, floweringheart.org, and there's a 36-minute introductory initiation video. But you're being initiated right now, so just take it in and let it flow through you, and join us throughout the satsang in pouring out the Flowering Heart blessing to all the other participants. Hoping you've been having a wonderful holiday season, whatever holy days you happen to be celebrating in your part of the world, in your tradition. Here it's been very cold all across North America. We live in Florida, which is usually about the warmest place you could be in winter in the U.S., and it has been freezing, literally freezing or below 3 days in a row. And we're ready for that to change, but we're ready to thaw out too. Anyway, we had a great time with our extended, well, yeah, sort of extended. It's actually our core family. All of our kids and their partners and our new granddaughter came together, celebrated Christmas here for the first time in 3 years. We have had a Christmas tree up, decorated with the lights on for 3 years. We have never taken it down. There's a manger scene or two. All the stockings have been hung by the chimney with care in the hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. 3 years later was the first time that all of us were of good health enough to come together. We've had some family member with COVID or something for the last several years, and we're so grateful we finally got to come together and celebrate Christmas and not be on lockdown. So that's great. Anything else?
Like or love?
What?
A like or a love?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, if you're joining us tonight, Facebook used to let us go and see who was on watching, and for some reason they stopped doing that. So if you're here tonight, go ahead and click like or love, and we'll be able to see who showed up. And it always warms our heart to be able to see the names of so many ones that we know and love so well.
And if you're on Vimeo, you can't give us a like or a love, but you can enter a comment into the chat. And I think you can probably do that at LinkedIn. I don't know if YouTube is easy to do that way. But anyway, let us know you are here, and we'll send you special hugs and blessings at the end. Although we're sending them to you right now, so just soak it up. Yeah. Just drink it in. The divine is always pouring out to you. Always. Just notice the space between each breath and the next one, between each thought or image or feeling and the next one that arises for just an instant. There's nothing there but an open door into vast luminous space. If you start to notice it, that experience will become very profoundly powerful and accessible to you. It's not hard. So we open it to questions and answers and insights and that you might have about the spiritual journey, about your spiritual practice, prayer, meditation, yoga, whatever your spiritual practice is. We all hit obstacles, barriers, plateaus, and at that time could use some clarity, some light, some inspiration. And this is a really good environment. Satsang is a great place to bring up questions with the community, and it helps everyone. So I see we have some right here. So we'll dive in, and then later on we'll be getting to very focused, intent blessings for the needs and the burdens that you've brought with you personally here tonight. I see we have a namaste from Muhammad Ibrahim from Al-Khobar, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Welcome. And you say, could you please hold an intention for me when sending Diksha, to which I responded, certainly. I'm curious what PK stands for. Your tag is Muhammad Ibrahim PK. I'm sure it's something meaningful, and I just don't know it. I actually figured out that we were talking about Khobar, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and okay, on we go. So we'll come back around to that for you when we get a little further on in our satsang. Oh, I forgot to give us a love. There we go. Okay. Okay, Tristan asks this week, I feel like sometimes the algorithm of Facebook takes me on a rabbit hole about what the divine wants me to learn from other cultures. Do you find you still learn something new from other spiritual belief systems? And if so, why can you share with the satsang? Okay. Yeah, well, I have no idea what kind of algorithms Facebook has running, but I know if you play someone else's copyrighted music, even if they're a friend of you, they catch you. And I had to present documentation that we actually had permission from a dear musician friend of ours to use that Gam Ganapataye Namaha mantra that we use each week at the beginning, and the music we use during the intent Diksha, and then in the light eye meditation at the end. And finally, I think we've reached an understanding. After they tag me every week for months and months and months, and I keep going, do we have to keep doing this every week? So I know they got algorithms running. What's an algorithm? It's some kind of computer code that
figures out what would appeal to you. and scans a platform, and that's how they, all this focused advertising and strange stuff that goes on. And anyway, some of it's really kind of necessary. As far as going down a rabbit hole about what the divine wants you to learn from other cultures, I think the divine would have us to be open to learn everything from other cultures. I found that in certain parts of my life I've traveled a lot, doing missionary work or being involved in spiritual retreats in other countries and parts of the world. And I learned that I only began to understand another culture when I went there and lived among the people. I tried Spanish was the first one. I tried to learn Spanish. I took several years of it in school. I was never really good at it in school. But I went to live in Mexico, in Guadalajara, years ago. And very quickly living there, not only was I beginning to pick up the language kind of spontaneously, because I was immersed in it and everybody's speaking it, I found myself dreaming in Espanol, which was really cool. But I began to understand the culture as you only could from the inside. And I think that's certainly true when I began to spend a lot of time in India. Boy, India's an interesting land. But, we get through social media these filtered views of other cultures. I mean, if you were living in North America, there are all kinds of voices trying to talk to us about Latin America, about refugees, about the way things are there. And it is, whether, I don't know if it's an algorithm, but we're seeing the world through a lens, through someone else's impression and interpretation. And the only way we can ever really know it is to touch it directly. And you go on to say, and this is relevant to that, do you still find yourself learning something new from other spiritual belief systems? Yes, it's like
learning about, Latin American culture. The only way, and I've learned a lot about a lot of different spiritual traditions, and I've studied world religions in an academic way and reading books, but that's not how I learned about them any more than it was taking Spanish in high school. I immersed myself in different spiritual mystical traditions, and the only way that I could really get a sense of the spirit of Sufism was to go dance with the Sufis and do dhikr and chant the name of the divine with Sufis. And you go, wow, you couldn't get that out of a book, And my initial spiritual tradition after the Christianity of my childhood, which I didn't understand and walked away from when I was 17 years old, really, I became a fervent Taoist, and I'm still a Taoist. But you couldn't learn about Taoist culture just by reading in a book.
Or a Facebook video. Or learning some Qigong form or some Tai Chi Chuan off a web video. I mean, you can learn something and get a definite feeling about the love of energy and movement, but the only way to really begin to get a taste of the Taoist spirit and culture is to hang out with Taoists. And so it is with Hindus, and so it is with Orthodox Christians and mystical Christians and Kabbalists, and there's so many great, I don't want to leave any of them out. Mahayana Buddhism, one of my favorites, I was fascinated by Tibetan Buddhism. And I read all these books back in the day in the 1960s and early 70s. But the way I really began to get a taste of it was I actually immersed myself in it, in the Vajrayana tradition. And I learned the meditation of Chenrezig, which you might know as Kuan Yin, or Avalokiteshvara if you're in India. And what an amazing tradition and energy and presence and community that the Tibetan Buddhist Sangha has. Sangha just means brotherhood, fellowship. So yes, I continue to learn because there's still so much to learn. Now, mostly at this point in my life, the way I learn from other traditions is by noticing that they have the same experiences and states of consciousness, regardless of the tradition. There are these different levels of that. If you were in the yoga meditation tradition, you'd recognize as different levels of dhyana and samadhi, leading to sahaj, nirvikalpa samadhi. And if you were a Catholic mystical Christian, there are these levels of mystical prayer or contemplative prayer, from the prayer of quiet into the prayer of simple union and the prayer of complete union, ecstatic union, and then the transforming union. And if you didn't know much about those traditions, that language is so different. It would seem like the one who's talking about different levels of samadhi could never understand, and vice versa. He's once talking about levels of contemplative prayer and divine union. And yet, if you really dive into them and experience the states that they're naming with different names and surrounding with different concepts, they're the same. Because reality is reality. And so that helps me to help people from all different traditions. Suzanne and I call ourselves interfaith ministers because we work with people from many different faiths, and we're able to relate to their experience because of our own depth of spiritual experience and our little bit of understanding about their culture and their tradition. Do you want to add anything? Yeah, I was going to say, as with anything though, especially these days, I've found that the more that I grow, the more that I can get spiritual teachings from everyday life and interactions I have with people, and going deeper each moment, just whatever life presents. Am I having a charge about it? Is there a program running? Am I reacting instead of responding? Am I coming from the head or the heart? with compassion. And whenever I hear something new, that would open up another level of my spiritual journey, I make sure that I go into my heart and make sure that it resonates there, that it's not making sense to me out of the mind, because the mind is usually all about the ego and wanting to control things, wanting to be right, wanting, its opinion to be center key. So when you slip into the heart and deepen that connection with your own inner divinity, then you start to get answers of, oh yeah, that spiritual teaching really resonates with me. That feels really good in my heart. And if it feels like it's coming out of fear or chaos or confusion or drama, criticism, judgment, resentment, any of those things, I tend to stay away from those kinds of teachings because I don't find them helpful. For me, on the flowering heart path, it's about going deeper on the heart flowering, not running around in fear that something's going to go wrong if I don't behave a certain way.
I think it's interesting, Tristan, that after you ask a question about, and you use the metaphor of something taking you down the rabbit hole, your next question is about magic mushrooms. I'm sure you know, but I don't know if everyone does, that saying about going down the rabbit hole is from Alice in Wonderland, where the white rabbit leads Alice sort of down the rabbit hole into Wonderland. And Wonderland is filled with all kinds of magical things, but there are all these like mushrooms, and there's this big caterpillar, Telemahuka, the smoking caterpillar. and obviously, a lot of us have thought it was obvious through the years that the author of Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass was influenced by psychedelic cult exploration. Okay, well, that said, now you say, what's your honest opinion about magic mushrooms, the spiritual? Okay, legitimate question because of the times we're living in, for sure. As I shared last week, I think, when you asked about ganja, marijuana and spirituality, I probably said that substances and plant medicine are not my path. That said, I respect the path of shamanic use of herbs and mushrooms and cacti and different things. And years ago, I can say that I definitely experienced a lot of those things. And they helped open the door to me to alternative states of reality. And I would go, wow, this reality that we think we're in isn't all there is to reality. There's more. But once I got that insight, then I found other ways to explore those altered states than using substances. So I asked my Taoist master over 50 years ago the same question that you just wrote. And he said to me, we Taoists used to use psychedelic mushrooms thousands of years ago to access higher states of consciousness. And then we no longer needed to because we learned the way of internal alchemy, of inner energy yoga and transformation, which on the surface is called Qigong. At a deeper level, it's called Neigong or Nuigong in Cantonese, which means basically inner power or internal alchemy. And it's the Chinese Taoist way of working with what others would recognize as the Kundalini energy, the Shakti, the Prana, transforming those energies and raising them up. So he said, once the old masters became aware of internal alchemy, there was no need for us to use psychedelic plants. We could do it through meditation and breath and energy work. And so that became a real And it came at a good time for me because he said that to me, probably it was early 1972, when the drug culture was in full sway, coming out of the acid generation of the 60s into what was about to become, I think, a real mess with the advent of harder drugs in the youth culture in the United States. There was a lot of cocaine use and MDA, and the rave scene started, and it just, and I thought we really lost a lot of the pure spiritual openness of the exploration of the 1960s. So his advice was very good, and I set everything aside. When I was still in college, my friends were saying, "Don't you want to, do this with us?" I go, "No, I really don't." I go, "Why not?" Because I'm really higher without it, and I like it. That said, a lot of people are using psilocybin mushrooms these days to assist themselves on their spiritual journey. And often that's done with micro doses, not like it's not a party thing. It's very precisely done with certain strains of these plants that have been well explored and cataloged by people in the know. And I think I really started hearing about it coming out of Silicon Valley a few years back, that a lot of the executives in Silicon Valley were reaching creative barriers where they couldn't tap their creativity, and they were starting to say that they were discovering that micro doses of psilocybin, which is the active chemical in the sacred magic mushrooms, was helping their minds break through from their rigid constraints into a creative flow where new ideas and creative patterns were unfolding. So, I can understand that, and I'm not sitting here in judgment of it because I know too many people who have gone down that path with great effect. I just say the same thing as I said last week, and I told you I say to young people who are too much into all that stuff sometimes, I'll teach you another way if you're willing to put in some work, because it's work to do it yourself. Sometimes we're just lazy, and rather than do the inner work, which is work. My Taoist master, the word that encapsulated the whole Taoist tradition of working with energy from Oriental medicine and Tai Chi Chuan and Kung Fu and acupuncture and so many of the Taoist arts, the one word is Kung Fu. Now you probably think that's all about fighting, but Kung Fu means literally, Fu means human, and Gung means development. So Kung Fu is human development, and it encompasses philosophy and art and diet and music and so much more than just punching. So, okay. But he said the real definition of Kung Fu is hard work. So whether your goal is to become a great healer or a mystic that awakens to oneness with all that is, or you want to be a great martial artist or a combination of things, it's hard work. Now, sometimes because our human tendency can be to be lazy, I'd rather just take a magic pill. One pill makes you taller, one pill makes you small. That's from Alice in Wonderland. And she played with all of that, which was definitely metaphorical for the exploration of drugs that was going on in Bohemian society back in those days. But The Matrix, which many of you may be familiar with it too, that movies about the Matrix, there were two pills you could take. And one kept you asleep in the matrix of the program, the collective program, and the other one woke you up and broke you out of the matrix. Very dangerous stuff. Similar idea, but so I understand, and I've had experiences along that line many years ago. But when all is said and done, I think we're trying to push it. My feeling is when we use substances, we're trying to push it. My Taoist master also said, why would you take a drug to induce an altered state of consciousness? What you're basically saying is you're not ready for it. Because if you're ready for it, if your heart is ready, it will flower and blossom from within you. I mean, I don't know anybody that actually got fully enlightened high on plant medicine. Maybe you do. But most people, it has nothing to do with substances at all. When you're ready, it just blossoms, the flowering of the heart into enlightenment and into awakening. But if we're impatient and we're hitting blocks, maybe I can take a pill and it'll get me through it. It's the same. I feel similarly about friends that my age who often get into conversations. What blood pressure medicine are you taking? What heart medication are you taking? What are you doing for your cholesterol? What tests have you had recently? And what's the cocktail of pharmaceuticals that you have been prescribed? And I go, none. I go, what? When was the last time you had this, these lists of different tests, invasive procedures that they love to do on all of us elder people? And I go, none. I think that's crazy. So, I've lived to this ripe old age and things have been going pretty well. I haven't spent a day in the hospital. I know I should knock on wood saying such things, but and by the grace of God. But the point is, I don't take any pharmaceutical medications, and it works for me. Now, I do understand that it's harder work to do it the natural way. Suzanne and I have been vegetarians over years. We have become complete vegans. We've lost tons of weight. Our blood pressure has come down to beautiful. And, we're doing nice. But it has been work. We've changed our lifestyle. We've changed our diet. We've changed our way of thinking and speaking and living. And if I didn't want to do that, I'd have to take pills as an alternative. I want to say the same thing about higher states of consciousness. Although no disrespect to my friends who go to the Amazon and hang out with shamans there, who take them an exploration into levels of reality that is phenomenal. I mean, so there you have it. That's my honest opinion. You want to add to it?
No, that's good.
You asked for opinion. That's only my opinion. Have you ever, interesting says, okay. So, have you ever heard of people transmitting light through instruments? Absolutely. Oh, sure. Everything's
vibration and frequencies. So, light comes from all different sources. It comes from music. It comes from nature. It comes from a loved one saying that they care. Light comes through everything. Mm-hmm. Even stuff that doesn't see light, because it's showing you where you need more light.
But music is perfect. Because music, because it is vibration, it's sound, it's created to move consciousness and move the heart. And it does it in an amazing way. We're all very susceptible, I think, to music. It can get around the mind so easily. Get around concepts and thoughts and just transmit the direct experience. But when we were spending a lot of time in India learning about different forms of Diksha, Diksha just means blessing, incidentally. Flowering heart blessing. We got a Sanskrit name for it, Hridaya Vikasa Diksha, which means flowering heart blessing. But we learned that Diksha, the transmission of divine energy that catalyzes awakening, doesn't just come through the laying on of hands or intentions in prayer and meditation. It can come through dance. It can come oh so beautifully through music. And that's one of the great forms of yoga, kirtan, which is chanting and singing to the divine from your heart, and often using mantra, which is pure vibration that unlocks doors and aspects of divine energy and consciousness in people. So, musical instruments has from time immemorial been a very, very powerful way to transmit the light. And PK is the short form of Muhammad Ibrahim's surname. Okay. Thank you. John writes, the few times in the 1970s I took magic mushrooms was nothing to write home about. Being honest, you're not missing anything. There you go. Muhammad continues, is there any way to evaluate my spiritual progress? Is there much more karma to be discharged? Well, yeah, there are lots of ways to evaluate your spiritual progress. It's very difficult to evaluate your own. That's the thing. We tend to either think that we're ahead of where we really are or we're way behind where we really are. And what is helpful is an enlightened or awakened spiritual guide, a spiritual director, a spiritual teacher that can work with us one-on-one and give us a clear reflection of what they see about where we are in our path and help us with guidance. I was just reading a statement by Ramana Maharshi, one of the greatest God-realized masters of India in the last century. And he said, you can tell how far along the path of self-realization you are by how many thoughts still arise in your consciousness. He comes from the tradition of non-duality and Advaita. And in that tradition, it's thought that in a state of full awakening, there are no thoughts at all. There is just clear, empty, silent, open space, which makes a lot more room to actually see and experience what's going on and to be present for others and to really feel them and hear their thoughts and where they're coming from. So I think that's an oversimplification, because in another way of looking at it, thoughts are part of the ancient mind, the thought sphere around planet Earth that's like part of the collective consciousness. The mind never stops. And you can become fully awakened without ever stopping the ancient mind. In fact, you can't stop the ancient mind. What you can do is disengage from it yourself so that in your space there's just freedom, silence, vast peace. The more of that there is, the deeper you're getting. But there are places on the spiritual path that are tricky, like a roller coaster. And without a spiritual director to guide you, you may think you've fallen from grace, you've gone down the rabbit hole, you're going into a pit, when in fact, all of that is happening just to make you go deeper. Just to be very firm about your commitment, go deeper inside into a deeper level of connection with spirit, with the divine. And how do you know the difference between whether this is just one of those bumps in the road that's just going to strengthen you and make you go deeper, or you're really doing something wrong and falling by the wayside? That's where you need an experienced guide. And I don't think you can get it by reading books, because all of that's filtered through the mind. And the mind plays some really tricky games with us. So, all right. Is there much more karma to be discharged? Yeah, look at the world around you. In India, this planet, this world we're living in is called Karma Bhumi, which means the world of karma. Everything in this world, this loka, this dimension, is the manifestation of karma, which is sowing and reaping, which is that which you sow, you will reap many times over. So people have sown a lot of seeds, some good, some bad, and the world we see around us is the manifestation of the result of those activities. Action, reaction. Action, reaction. So as long as there are people on this planet who are in darkness, who have not awakened to divine union, there is more karma to discharge because we're all one. You may think you've finished all your karma, then you get to work on the collective karma of all of us, you see. But karma is like layer after layer after layer. And you can become quite awakened, and you can be quite free from personal karmic yuckiness and still be running into karma all the time. We're dealing with ancestral karma, not just our own, but our ancestors and what they did, some good, some bad. We're dealing with national karma. Oh my God, what our leaders, our rulers have done over the millennia, some good, some bad, but we are all reaping the consequences of the collective actions of our ancestors, our peoples, our countries, and humanity itself. I mean, look at what's happening on Earth to the climate and the environment. It's something that whether we personally have contributed a lot to that mess, we all get to share in the experience of facing it and fixing it. Okay, Tristan. I am Native American Plains Cree. My spirit name is Keeper of Medicines, name initiated by Harry Snow, Boy Cree Shaman, Elders. So interesting answer in regards to medicines. Well, see, if you told me that, I would have been even more tender about it, because that, my understanding is that the use of plant medicines is very much a part of the Native American way. Nothing wrong with it at all. And I was thinking more of a kind of exciting, but sometimes obsessive focus these days on DMT, either from ayahuasca or DMT number 5, which is often called toad medicine, from the Sonora Desert toad. I know a lot about these things actually and what they do, and it's very powerful. So I never want to speak disparagingly. I just want to say, that if you find yourself somewhere without your herbs, without your pipe, without anything else, that we can access spiritual realities directly through divine grace. That's always there. But very cool. Thank you for sharing about your Native American background. And I'm sure there's a lot you could teach us. Yep. And Linda says, way to go. And Mohammed says, I read Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, given instantaneous enlightenment to Swami Vivekananda. Is it possible? Absolutely, yes. Yes. And rarely Diksha can have that effect of instantaneous awakening. Usually, it always brings awakening and catalyzes it, but it's usually more of a gradual process. But there are notable examples, and Vivekananda is one. Meher Baba, a great Sufi, enlightened Sufi mystic, considered an avatar by many, was kissed on the forehead by a living saint, a female saint who used to give darshan under a tree in India, and she just kissed him on his forehead, and he was completely enlightened and didn't speak another word for many decades. It's blown beyond language and beyond speaking. So yeah, sure. Absolutely a possibility. Keep the door open. Okay. Well, that's excellent. Thank you for your beautiful questions. And back on Vimeo, Julia says, what do you think of Soka Gakkai chanting to Nam-myoho Renge-kyo a Buddhist practice from Japan. They chant. It's very beautiful. Back in the 60s, I used to chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And I've known people involved in that tradition. It is a Buddhist sect from Japan. And that mantra, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, has certain properties. If you're interested, Google it, read about it. Go to a group and find out.
Watch a Facebook video.
No. What we said, go hang out and feel the energy and the vibration of that group. Red. Hey there. As I've gone deeper on my path, I've noticed recently I've become much more grounded. It's like the more I dive into my own presence, the less drawn I am toward exploring high energies, and the more interested I am in just being human. Is there a general spiritual stage of development that this can be attributed to? I've become so much less interested in higher energies, yet I feel I'm still going deeper. Well, I wouldn't want to give it a name, but I reckon...
The diminishment of ego. Basically, to sum it up, the less that we begin to care about ourselves and care more about the greater good and compassion, unconditional love, that's one of the side effects, because we kind of get bored with ourselves. I mean, egos are really kind of boring. They just have a lot of drama and crisis and crazy stuff. So the more that we expand into our hearts, I think for me, that's become the highest energy state anybody could be in, is to be fully human and to be present with people during the day. Now, a year from now, I may be saying, wow, something else came up, but I think that's probably the hardest part of the spiritual path, but the most rewarding, because we've got to look at ourselves.
I've had mind-blowing enlightenment experiences. I mean, mind-blowing, splattered on the cosmic ceiling kind of thing. And then once that happens, once you're blasted out of ego into cosmic consciousness, I think the next question is, well,
so what?
What now? Yeah, so what?
So what?
What now? And so the challenge is to ground and embody that vast consciousness in our humanity, as Suzanne was saying. That's the challenge. And so a lot of the work has been to ground and integrate this amazing stuff that's rolled in with a lightning flash many times through my life, many times. And I think it's a sign of spiritual maturity when you stop being obsessed with getting out and getting up and become focused on getting in and getting here. You know, wake up, grow up, clean up, and show up. Those are the 4 stages of awakening Ken Wilber talks about. But, you know, waking up, kaboom, okay. And then there's growing up. That's a more challenging process. and then cleaning up, the transformations that are required as a result of the integrated light, and then showing up for the world and for others, letting your light shine. So I'm so happy to hear you say that,
That's
Red.
beautiful.
Yeah, indeed. And I don't think there's an end. I think awakening is the endless process, because we're in this journey of awakening that started with a very contracted sort of egoic consciousness that is exploding infinitely, like light in all directions. And there's no end to that expansion. So even the divine's still expanding and exploring. Well, thank you. That's just great.
That is great.
Wow. Good sharing, you guys. Thanks,
Yay.
man. Mohammed said, there's much more stuff in internet regarding astral travel, astral projection. Is it real? Is there any safety issue hidden behind it? Yes, it is quite real. And yes, there are other dimensions and other worlds, and not all the beings in all these planes are nice and like you. So you need to know how to stay grounded to your actual physical body so you can get back. You need to be shielded so that you can't just be invaded by and taken over by beings that would like to use you. And that's why we Taoists cultivate a circle. And there are lots of ways to talk about it, but we need to be shielded and grounded in the Taoist tradition before we take students on that ascent. Besides, the astral plane is not where we want to go. In the Hebrew tradition, they spoke of three heavens in biblical times. The atmospheric heaven around this planet, the astral heavens, and then the third heaven where God and the holy angels dwell. That's what we want. So in between this realm, which is dense and physical and has all kinds of obstacles, and the realm of God, which you can only enter by invitation, you can't enter in violently or force your way in, is this vast astral plane where there are all kinds of levels of reality. You can get lost there, and some of them, because we're just learning, it seems like you're in a much higher plane, but you could be stuck there forever. And and we need to know that we should keep our eyes on the light. Keep going through all those planes, go all the way home, go all the way to source, to the light.
I've never really wanted to play too much around on the astral plane because I find it challenging enough just to be fully present and human here now. And I kind of feel like if we're incarnated here, that's a big part of our gig, is to get this down and to find the best way that we know how to be in the world as it is today. Yeah, it's fun to escape to a good movie every now and then, but yeah.
So, it's time. If your eyes are still open, please close them. And we're going to begin holding strong intentions for all the needs, the longings, the burdens you've brought with you here tonight. You don't even need to tell us, and you sure don't need to tell the divine, because the divine presence knows what you need better than you do. And it is unconditionally loving. The divine loves you no matter what mistakes you've made or are making, and yearns to free you from delusion and ignorance and suffering and bring you home. So, just open your heart and receive the blessing that is pouring out to you, pouring out within you here tonight. If there's something gripping you with pain or worry, just give it to the presence right now. No more than a single word, help, is needed, and then just let go and receive the grace that is flowing to you. Nothing to say, nothing to do, nothing to struggle for. Just receive the unconditional, loving grace of the divine source. we'd like to invite you, when you're ready, to open your eyes and begin to make direct eye contact with Suzanne and or me as we dive into the light meditation. Make sure you keep looking at least one of our eyes. That's all there is to do. That's your part. We're flooded, Suzanne and myself, oceans of grace that begin to pour through every fiber of our being, especially through our eyes, which we adore rays. The light streams meditate with us for a few more minutes as the grace we've received settles within us. Find a spot nearby to lie in Shavasana, even better. Find a place where you can lie down on your back, your eyes closed, your arms loosely at your sides, your palms open, turned upward. Just let yourself dissolve in the presence of gratitude. We love you very much.
Much love, light, and blessings.
Until the next time we meet, know that the divine within us beholds the divine within you, and we